Yo, in the previous video I introduced Kan and how you can use it to gain a ridiculous amount of points in Mahjong. However, there's actually a whole set of special hands called Yakuman that are basically the atomic bombs of Mahjong. Today, I'll introduce to you every single Yakuman, what you need to know about them, and when you should be going for them.
Jouzu.
First of all, what is a Yakuman? Well, Yakuman translates into maximum Yaku. In other words, these special hands here will automatically reward you the maximum possible amount of points, which in most places is equal to 13 Han. However, instead of counting the Han using Yaku like we used to before, Yakuman hands are special compositions with special requirements that do not require any Yaku at all, only that these specific patterns are fulfilled. The first Yakuman that I want to introduce is the most common one called Coushi Soul, otherwise known as 13 Orphans. In order to get this hand, you must have one of every single terminal, which are these tiles here, as well as one of every single jihai, which are wins and honor. And on top of that, you must have a duplicate of any of those tiles. So if you take a look at this example here, I have both terminals from the Mon suit, I have a single terminal from the Ball suit, both terminals from the Stick suit, all 4 wins with a duplicate of East, as well as every single honor. The only thing that I'm missing here is the 9 ball. So should anybody here throw the 9 ball, or should I tsumo a 9 ball, I will win the Coushi Soul. One super important thing to know about the Coushi Soul is that it actually has a second identity. Now in the previous example, the only tile I could have won on is the 9. This is because I already have every single other tile and the duplicate. But what would happen if I did not have a duplicate of any of those tiles? Well, take a look here. I've got all the terminals and all the jihai without a single duplicate. So when I throw this unnecessary tile, look how many tiles become red, as that indicates what tiles I can win on. Yes, that's right. Every single one of these 13 tiles is a tile that I can win on, because I need a duplicate of any of these tiles. Meaning I have 13 possible weights. Hence, this becomes a double Yakuman known as Coushi 13 machi, or 13 Orphans 13-sided weight. A double Yakuman, as the name implies, is worth 2 times the price of a regular Yakuman. So if the regular Yakuman was a nuclear bomb, this would be the rumbling. One thing about the 13 weights Coushi that you must be aware of is that the second you throw any of these tiles by yourself, you immediately lose the ability to run anybody else because you are stuck in the state of Furiten. If you would like to learn more about Furiten and why you can't run, please click the video on the top right. There are 2 more things related to the Coushi that you should know about. The first is this draw button. This button will show up if you start the game and automatically have 9 or more Coushi tiles. If you press the draw button, it will immediately end the game and refresh everybody's tiles. Which means 2 things. 1, you are quite close to landing a Coushi, and 2, if you do not want to play the Coushi, you can simply hit draw to refresh your hand. Now, why would anybody do this? Clearly, if the game gives you the Yakuman, you would want to take it, right? Well, later on in this video, I will be talking about when you should actually be going for Yakuman and when you should not. The final thing about the Coushi Soul relates to the previous video on Kan. You'll remember that I mentioned that the Yaku Chan Kan can only be done on an added Kan, where the On Kan or closed Kan has immunity to getting Chan Kan. However, Coushi is actually an exception to this rule. See, if this guy calls a closed Kan on the salves here, he can actually still get Chan Kan by the person waiting for the Coushi. Obviously, it won't give me the Chan Kan Yaku because Yakuman overrides every other Yaku, but it's still a super cool, unique ability that the Coushi has. The second most common Yakuman is called Suanko, or 4 concealed triplets. As the name implies, your hand must be closed and must have 4 triplets that are concealed. So if you take a look at my hand here, I've got 3, 3, 3, that's 1 triplet that I have by myself, so it's entirely concealed. Then I've got 8, 8, 8, second triplet entirely concealed, 2, 2, 2, third triplet entirely concealed, and then I've got these 2 Wests and 2 Sevens waiting the last tile. Now this is the important part. If someone were to throw the West and I hit run, this would not be Suanko because the last triplet is not concealed. This means the only way to win a Suanko is off of a tsumo. This way, all 4 of these triplets here are entirely my own and thus are entirely concealed. Very importantly, there's actually a second variation of the Suanko. So if you take a look here, I have 999, that's first triplet, 444 second triplet, 555 third triplet, 666 fourth triplet. I already have all 4 triplets concealed. The only thing I'm waiting on is the last pair. In this situation, if somebody throws the winning tile to make my pair, I can indeed run them because the last pair has nothing to do with my triplets being concealed. Should you get a hand like this, this is a double Yakuman known as Suanko Tanki, or 4 concealed triplets single weight. The third most common Yakuman is called Daisangen, or Big 3 Dragons. You may remember its little brother, the small 3 dragons. Daisangen is very similar, except this time you have to have a triplet of every single honor tile. And it's as simple as that. The triplets can be opened or closed. As long as you have 3 of each of these tiles and you win, you automatically get Daisangen. Now, while there is no double Yakuman version of the Daisangen, there is something you should be aware of called the responsibility system. Okay, so if you take a look here, this guy's got an open triplet of the white and the red. So everybody else here should be suspicious of a Daisangen, but there's no way for them to know with 100% certainty. If this person were to win with a Daisangen right now, whether it be through Tsumo or through Ron, everything would work as expected. So if he Tsumo'd, he would take points equally from both players, and if he Ron'd, he would take points specifically from the player who he Ron'd. However, if someone were to throw the green and he were to pawn the green, now for every other player, they know for a fact that this guy has Daisangen. There's no doubt about it. But take a look at the way this pawn is positioned. See, it's this player that threw the green. So that's why when we pawn, we have this tile facing horizontal to indicate who threw the tile. And this is important because this person is now responsible for confirming the Daisangen. And so later on, when this person wins the hand and wins the Daisangen, despite him winning through a Tsumo, instead of taking the points equally from both players, the person responsible for confirming the Daisangen has to pay the full amount. And you'll see this red icon next to the person who's responsible. Now, if, for example, instead of Tsumoing, if this player here Ron'd the top player, these 2 players would have to split the fee equally because this player is responsible for the Daisangen. To make things extremely simple, if your opponent has a hand like this, don't throw the green. Just don't do it. Now that we're done with the common Yakuman trio, that is Kokushi, Suanko, and Daisangen, the 4th Yakuman is Tsuiso, or all honors. As the name suggests, as long as your hand contains nothing but honors, you get a Yakuman. The great thing about Tsuiso is that it allows you to easily get what's called combo Yakumans. So for example, if my hand had nothing but honors and within these honors I also had triple red, white, green, this would be Tsuiso plus Daisangen, making it into a double Yakuman. One extra thing of note is that you may occasionally see a Yakuman called Daishise, or Big 7 Stars. Some places count this as a double Yakuman, however it is not enabled by default in most Mahjong clients. In Mahjong Soul, if you land Daishise, it will simply call it Tsuiso and reward you a single Yakuman. Daishise is considered a local Yaku, so if you'd like to learn more about those, please click the link on the top right. The 5th Yakuman is called Shosushi, or 4 Little Winds. In order to get this, you must have a triplet of 3 of the winds and a pair of the last wind. If you have a triplet of all winds, you actually score a double Yakuman called Daisushi, or 4 big winds. Number 6 is Shindoto, or all terminals. In order to get this, your hand must consist of nothing but 1s or 9s. Number 7 is one of the more unique and beautiful Yakumans called Ryuiso, or all green. Now please take note, this is not the same as a full flush with sticks. It is very, very literal with the meaning all green. The 1, 5, 7, and 9 are not all green because they have other colors, so you can't have these. The only acceptable tiles are 2, 3, 4, 6, 8 of sticks, and Hatsu, the green honor. 8th up is my favorite Yakuman of all time, and that's Churen or 9 gates. This is an absolutely beautiful hand that is so rare to get. There's a saying in Japanese that if you score a Churen, you will immediately die because you've used up all your luck. In order to score a Churen, your hand must look like this shape. 1, 1, 1, 9, 9, 9, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, a duplicate of any of these tiles, all in the same suit, closed. Fortunately, you can run the last tile, and there is also a double Yakuman variant called 九蓮九面待ち, or 9 gates, 9 waits. If you have a perfect 111, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9, 9 without any duplicates, well then you're waiting for the duplicate to win, which means you're waiting for all 9 of these tiles. And yet that's still not the rarest Yakuman in the game, because in 9th and 10th place, I'm gonna bundle these together, is Chiho and Tenho, Blessing of Earth and Blessing of Heaven. Both of these are just single Yakumans, and in order to get them, all you have to do is get your starting hand and just win. Like literally do nothing and just win. Tenho is specifically for the person on the east seat, while Chiho is for everybody else on the other seats. Keep in mind, these Yakumans can be intercepted by making any calls. So for example, if this player sitting in the north gets an immediate Tenpai, so he's waiting for the Chiho, but he's player number 4, so it goes 1, 2, 3, 4 like this. If player 1 discards something and player 2 calls Pon or Chi or Kan, that will immediately invalidate player 4's ability to Chiho. This applies for Sanma as well. If the beginning player calls Pei, everybody loses Chiho. Okay, but what if the first player discards player 4's winning tile? That doesn't count either. Chiho and Tenho must be Tsumo. There is a local Yaku called Genho that turns that into a Yakuman, but again, local Yaku are not enabled by default. And if you thought being God-gifted a Yakuman is the rarest possible hand, then you'd be surprised because it's still not the rarest Yakuman. That title goes to Sukans, 4 Khans. Okay, it sounds so simple, so why is it so hard? Well, let's take a look. This is my hand. I've got triplet, pair, and some other stuff. I go, dang, okay, let me go for 4 Khans. Horrible decision, by the way. Guy throws the east, I go Pon. So now, in order to turn this into a Khan, all I need to do is get the last east myself. But what if I don't get it myself? What if someone else throws it? I can't retroactively call the Khan and I can't undo the Pon. Even if I call every single other Khan, I still can't Khan this one. A single tile not coming to me means GG dead. Alternatively, what if I chose not to pawn it, then later on got these 3 Khans? Well, I'm still stuck because I can't retroactively Khan that tile that was thrown earlier. GG dead. Or if my Khan tile shows up in the Dora indicator, GG dead. What if some other player calls a Khan? Well, now you can't get it anymore because that's Sukan Nagare. GG dead. Or what about we take into consideration player psychology? There is no way you're gonna call this many Khans and expose this many points and all the other players are just gonna ignore it. You either get a guy going, holy smokes, this guy's insane for calling so many Khans, I'm gonna play super aggressive and capitalize on it and call a reach super fast. Or, holy smokes, this guy's insane for calling so many Khan, I'm gonna play super defensive and only play safe tiles, and any tile that's never been thrown before, I'm not gonna throw it either because I don't want this guy to Khan again. Sukansu is impossible. And yet I've got it twice.
Yeah, boy.
Finally, there is a way to score a Yakuman without getting a Yakuman hand, and that is to simply have a hand that is worth 13 or more points. This is called a Kazue Yakuma, or Counted Yakuman. For example, this hand is worth 15 Han, but because the maximum points is 13, it will just count as 13 and count as a Kazue Yakuman. The only way you can get more points than 13 Han is if you get a double Yakuman or triple Yakuman or something like that. Speaking of, what is the maximum amount of Yakumans that you can possibly stack? Well, let's start with Tsuiso as it allows us to easily multiply the Yakuman. Then let's switch out all of these tiles for all of the wins in triplets. This gives us Daisushi, which adds up to a triple Yakuman right now. Then let's say all of this was concealed and we're waiting only for the last pair. That's Suanko Tanki, so that's plus another 2 Yakumans. We're at 5 times Yakuman now. And finally, let's assume that we get this right off the bat, so this is a Tenho, that adds up to 6 times Yakuman, and that's the maximum amount of Yakuman you can get. Alternatively, if you didn't get a Tenho, if you were able to call Khan on all of the wind directions, that would still add up to 6 times Yakuman, except the Tenho would be replaced with Sukansu. Before I go into when it's worth going for a Yakuman, I need you to listen to this closely and promise me this one thing. You will never call Reach when you are on Tenpai for a Yakuman. It is the stupidest thing ever. This is because when you call Reach, you are actually putting 1,000 of your own points at risk so that you can gain more points when you win. But is that really worth the risk when you're already gonna land a Yakuman? Second of all, it's extremely obvious when someone's trying to go for a Yakuman. For example, if this guy's going for Kokushi, he will throw nothing but simples. That's incredibly sus. If this person calls Reach, I am never throwing another Terminal, Honor, or Wind ever again because I don't want to run the risk of getting run. If he didn't call Reach, I might have been careless and thrown it, but the fact that he raised the alarm causes everybody on the board to be extremely careful, thus lowering his own chances of winning. The only exception is if you know how to calculate the points and you're on a Suanko hand. Then you can argue, hey, I don't need to go for the Yakuman because that's overkill, all I need is like 7 or 8 Han to win, and if I call Reach and run with this hand, I get 7 Han, then okay, I think that's fine. But everything other than that, no. Finally, we get to the topic of when it's worth going for the Yakuman. And in order to answer this question, we have to divide the player base into 2 types of people. Type 1 are those who click flashy buttons, see big number, go boom, happy, happy, happy. If you're just like me and you're part of this group, then the answer is yes. Just do it. Don't expect most of your attempts to land, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, so good luck and have fun. Type 2 are those who want to climb the rankings and actually get good at the game. If you fall into this category, then the short answer is no, don't do it. The long answer is, if you're really down on points, and I mean down bad on points, you could attempt to go for it, but consider that if you add up the success chance of the common Yakuman trio, that is Kokushi, Suanko, and Daisangen, if you add all of them up, it doesn't even make up 1%. So if you're down bad on points, it's the last round, and the only way you can catch up to maybe second place is by a Yakuman, then yeah, you have no choice but to bet on the less than 1%. However, also consider that if you take too many risks and you get run, you will drop further in ranking than if you simply accepted your 4th place and played it safe. Basically, if you really want to get good in ranked and not just land more Yakuman but increase your win rate, you have to understand the concept of oshihiki, which is the balance of risk to reward, which you can learn about in this next video here.